Welcome back to the video poker project. We're going to pick up from the previous video where we created our class level variables and continue coding our game. And I'm going to copy my comment up here and paste those in. I'm just going to change this to event handlers. So all of our event handlers will be gathered together in one location of my code. And we'll do the same thing for all our user-defined functions. And then finally, I'll do another one that's focused on all of our winning hands. Okay, so we have our form load. When we double-clicked our form earlier, it created this stub for us. We're going to put a comment in of hide the hold buttons and the hold labels initially. And we're going to create two methods. One is hide hold labels. Not going to pass anything, but it is a method, so it needs parentheses. And then hide hold buttons. So the next step is we need to create those two methods. And these are our user-defined methods. So again, I'm going to copy this block, come below our form load, give myself a few blank lines, and paste those comments in. And I'm going to change this center description to user-defined methods. So all the user-defined methods that we're going to write and call will come under here. Until we get to the winning hand stuff, I'm going to break that out in a separate group. But we created our method call for hide hold label, so I need to create that method. So we're going to have private. It's not going to return anything, so it's just void hide hold labels. And there's our stub for that. And we're going to set the visible property to each one of those labels of the hold we placed on top of the cards to false. And I'm going to change how I do this a little bit from the way I've done this in the. So we're going to hide each of those labels. So LBL hold one dot visible equals. Many times we want to basically show these as well. So I'm thinking right now I'm going to change this a little bit. We're going to add the Boolean expression here of true, of false, and then let's set up a Boolean value. I'm going to call it TF. So LBL hold one visible equals TF. So we can use the same thing later to show our labels. Maybe it'd be good to change the name of this to hide show hold labels. I want to make sure I change it here as well. Need my semicolon. And I'm going to take that line, copy it, and I'm just going to paste it 4 more times. And I'm going to change the ones to 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you get a squiggly in any of these, you know that you didn't name your labels those names. I'm going to do the same thing for the hide hold buttons. Let's change that to hide show hold buttons. And again, I'm going to pass it a value of false. And we'll create that method. Private void hide show hold buttons. And again, we'll do a Boolean value of TF, true, false. In my code here will be btn hold one dot visible equals TF. And then once again, I'm going to copy that line, paste it 4 times, and change the number of values for each of those other buttons to be btn hold 2, 3, 4, and 5. A little spelling here on hide show. And extra D there. Just look at my squigglies up here, figure out why that's happening, make sure those go away. Whoops, I named this one incorrectly. Hide show hold labels. Okay. My squigglies have gone away. I've got hide show hold labels, passing it false. It's going to set the visible property to false. Hide show hold buttons. It's going to set that to false. I'm going to go back to my design. I'm going to double click on my bet1 button. My code here will simply be bet equals 1. And then we'll set txt bet.text equals bet.toString. So I'm getting a squiggly under txt bet, and I believe I made those labels, so let's make that LBL bet. There we go. I want to do the same thing for the other 3 bet buttons. So I'm going to come back to my code, double click on the 2. And I could have done these all in one statement, figured out maybe the number from sender or used a switch to set the bet. This is probably just as easy. The code is short. And so all I'm going to do here is just simply copy that code, paste, change the bet to a 2. Same thing for bet 3. Change the 1 to a 3. Bet 4. And bet 5. Now, these all got pasted in at the end of my code, and so they're now currently inside the user-defined functions. I'm going to move those up here to the event handlers. So I'm just going to select those. And I can actually just drag and move them. Or you can copy and paste. Be careful what you leave the last 2 curly brackets there. So everything is lining up on the curly brackets. Go back to my form. I'm going to double click on the BTN draw button. We're going to do an initial phase on this. We'll come back and change our code when we do phase 3, where we're drawing 2 hands. For now, all I want to do is just try drawing a set of cards randomly. And so in this button, we're just going to create another method called draw initial hand. And again, I'm going to move this up into my event handlers. This time I'll just cut it up here and paste. Okay, so we need that initial hand code written. And one thing I like to do is, if I'm going to have a lot of code, and there's going to be about 500 lines of code in this project, is to maybe alphabetize these by the name of the method. So I want the draw initial hand to come above my hide show hold. So we're going to do private. I want this to be a void method. Nothing's being returned. It's simply going to do something. And this is going to be draw initial hand. I'm not going to pass anything, so I just want my parentheses and then my curly brackets. The code for draw initial hand is going to start with an integer value of I equals 0. We're going to use this as our loop counter. In fact, if you want, you can put a comment here of loop counter. We're going to have another integer called random card. So this will be used for pulling a card randomly from the deck. And then I want a for loop. For, I don't need to declare I as an integer. I've already declared I, so I can say I equals 0. I is less than 53, the number of cards we have in our deck, and I plus plus. And we're going to say use cards. Remember, that was one of the arrays we created, the class level arrays. I'm going to take each element, element I, and set it equal to 0. We'd made that an integer array. So I'm going to set that equal to 0. And what that's going to do is reset all of our used cards to say they're available for use. We're going to randomly draw cards and check and make sure that card's not already been used by checking to see if the used cards index for that card is set to 0 or not. So now we have another for loop, and here I'm going to have I equals 1. We're going to start with the very first card. I is less than or equal to 5, and I plus plus. We're going to draw our 5 cards to start our initial hand using this loop. And so we're going to use a do while. And the while is going to be use cards, random card, and that's an element number, so I want that inside of square brackets, equals 1. And I do need a semicolon here. So I'm getting a squiggly and a random card. Even though we define it up here, it doesn't have any value yet. So we could take int random card and set it equal to 0, I suppose. That gets rid of that squiggly. But we want to change the value of random card inside of our do loop. And that's where we're randomly pulling each card from our list. So random card equals rnd dot next. I'm going to get a value between 0 and 51, and then I'm going to add 1 to it because it's a value between 1 and 52. Those are the 52 cards in the deck, starting with element 1 of our card array that we created at the top. And let's just add a comment here, generate a number between 1 and 52, inclusive. So this is going to generate a random card between 1 and 52 and continue doing that as long as random card element of used cards is equal to 1. Well, right now they're all set to 0, so the very first card we draw shouldn't be a problem. But to make sure we don't draw that same card again, we want to set our used cards random element random card to 0. We'll do that in the next line. Use cards element random card equals 0. And that will ensure that we always get unique cards, much like we did in that lottery picker or the bingo maker assignments that we saw earlier in this semester. We're doing the same thing here. So rather than randomly picking numbers, we're drawing numbers that represent a card. And then we're going to call a method that we will write here in a minute called display card. And for display card, we're going to pass it 2 things. We're going to pass it I, which is which of our 5 cards is being displayed. So it'd be value of 1 through 5. That's coming from our for loop here. And then what card do we want to display there? Well, that's the value of random card that we're going to pull from our cards array. I'm going to set the element of my array called current hand. Element I, that's going to be 1 through 5 again. And that's going to equal cards and the element of random card. And this is going to keep track of what our cards are in memory so that later we want to figure out, did we have a winning hand or not? It'd be easy to do that using our current hand array. So I got a squiggly under display card, and that's because that does not exist. We're going to fix that in a minute. I want to make sure that the card that's being displayed and the element in my current hand array are aligning. That the current hand accurately reflects which card is being displayed on our screen. And I'm going to do that with a message box, but I'm going to first build a little string prompt here. It's going to equal null string. And then for I, we're going to go again from 1 to I is less than or equal to 5. I++. And in this loop, prompt, we're going to concatenate to prompt the value of current hand element I. Remember, that was a string array, so I don't need to do any conversion, but I'm going to put in a space in my semicolon. So I have a space separating the different hands. Having done that, we're then ready to create our message box. Call the show command. What I want to show is that value of prompt. My title is going to be my hand. And I'm not bothered to put a button. We'll use the OK button. So I want a semicolon there. And we're going to comment all that out after we're making sure this works. So I'll put a little comment here of comment the above. We have 6 statements before distribution. I still have the squiggly under display card, so I need to write that method. And I want that to come above draw initial hand. I'm doing these alphabetically. Private. Again, this is a void method. Display card. I'm going to pass it 2 things. One's going to be an integer value, which is going to be the card number. And then the other is going to be the integer of the select card. Okay, I'm going to create a picture box array. I'm just going to call it PB cards. And it's going to equal, give it some values here. So the first one is PBX card 1, PBX card 2, PBX card 3, PBX card 4, and PBX card 5. Card number, I'm going to decrement that, so minus minus. And the reason I'm doing that is this card number goes from 1 to 5, but these indexes go from 0 to 4. So I'm decrement card number, and then I can say PB cards element card number. We want to set the image of whatever picture box we've chosen, and we're going to set that to our image list img cards dot images, and the element of that image list collection is our selected card. Get rid of the blank line there. And that will set the image to whatever card we are sending it to the selected card, which is a value from 1 to 52. Okay, I'm going to just kind of scroll through my code really quickly, make sure there's no squigglies anywhere. I don't see any errors down here, so there shouldn't be. And let's just test this portion of our program. So I'm going to choose the draw button, and I see here that I have a deuce of clubs. That's what I have in this message box. Queen of hearts, ace of diamonds, 5 of diamonds, and the ace of spades. That all seems to work. I'm going to do it one more time. And now I'm getting 6 of diamonds, 3 of diamonds, 4 of hearts, king of diamonds, 4 spades. You might want to test this a whole bunch of times to make sure that you get no duplicates. In fact, what I might do at this point is, just because I know that seems to be working, I'm going to go back to my code, I'm going to end my project, and I'm going to go ahead and comment out these 6 lines that was showing our current hands as the prompt for that message box. So I will comment out the selection, and I'm going to run it again. And now I can simply just click through, make sure I get no duplicates. Uh-oh, I've got 2 Queen of Clubs there. So let's figure out what happened. And what happened was I set use cards element random card to 0, and that should have been a 1. Did you catch that as I was doing this earlier? Because we're checking to make sure that while it's a 1 rather than a 0, we wanted to set that to a 1 once we used it. So it's good that we tested quite a bit there. I'm going to run this one more time and cycle through a whole bunch of times, make sure we get no duplicates. If you did about 20 times, that's probably going to be sufficient to say, yes, we're getting no duplicate cards. Now you may see the same card come up in multiple hands or subsequent hands, and that's fine. There should not be any duplicate cards within this one single hand. Okay, that all seems to be working well. I'm going to close. Now one thing you could do is you could set a breakpoint and watch to make sure this is happening. And I won't bother to demonstrate that here, but I'd probably set a breakpoint maybe on the current hand. That way you could see what's being displayed, see the value of random cards, see what the value of used cards is, and so forth. All right, that concludes phase 2. In phase 3, we'll start to begin more of the gameplay where we're holding cards and only drawing the cards that are not held. And then in phase 4, we'll look at, did we win anything? If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the C# Xamarin Programming Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.